referrals. It is the backbone of so many of our firms, whether that was because your first boss ever told you about that before they ever used digital marketing, or if that's because you truly genuinely care about other human beings and enjoy it, or because you want to be a go-to resource and have referrals out just as much as referrals in. But it has become so important to really anybody in that professional setting, but certainly lawyers. And if you're looking to have better referrals, I don't think there's anybody better to talk to than my wonderful guest today, Stacey Brown Randall, who I hope I can call a friend. But regardless, I have been weirdly listening to her podcast for, oh my God, 6 years, 5 years?
I don't know. We're at 250 episodes. So how many years that is?
So 5
Forever.
years. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I got in not at the exact beginning, so maybe 4.5 years. And really, Stacey does the best job having a podcast that is mostly her talking, but in an organized way about topics where they build off of each other, where she's not just repeating the same thing over and over again, all centered around an ideal concept, which is, of course, getting referrals and sticky client experience and reverse goal setting. But ultimately, it all comes back to that. So when it came time for us to put together our tentpole episodes for some of the best and brightest that I wanted, the most important top 10 tips for law firms, Stacey was on that list. And thankfully, she's joining us today to talk about them.
Well, thank you, Jordan, for having me. You know, for somebody who doesn't actually teach referrals, I really do appreciate how much you are an advocate for the importance of it and how that should be a foundational point for any attorney's law firm. And so it's always fun to get on here and jam with you about referrals.
Awesome. All right. So when everybody is done listening to this, they're going to be smart enough to want to connect with you more. What's the best way? Is it the podcast? Is that the best way?
So, I mean, definitely, if you want to listen to the podcast, Roadmap to Referrals, we are always welcoming new listeners that want to come and hang out with us. Of course, you can always buy my book, Generating Business Referrals Without Asking, if you prefer to read. But Homebase is the website. Like everything you need is there. How to get in touch with me is there. Find out how to work with me is there. Like everything's there. And that's StaceyBrownRandall.com.
And Stacey has an E.
And Stacey has an E. That's right.
It's a branding thing that Stacey has done, and it lives rent free in my head every time I hear your name, or really any Stacey at this point. So congratulations, all Stacey's have an E now, according to my brain.
As they should, as they must. I'm just kidding.
All right, so I want to dive into for those of you that have been watching, the first week of every month, we do our top 10 tips from an expert. Then those will show up in our Solutions for Lawyers by Lawyers Facebook group, and that culminates in a live episode. By the time that you are watching this one, we will have been about 2 or 3 weeks after Chelsea's episode, or Chelsea's live. Super great. We had a number of you in there asking questions and follow-up questions, and it was a blast. So where do we start? What is tip number 1?
You know, I don't know how you can be a business owner and not be willing to focus on mindset. And it's the same with referrals. So tip number 1 is this concept of the mindset you need to have around referrals, which is you do deserve referrals. You're just not owed them. So you have to be willing to do some work. And I think sometimes people, they know that some of the tactics that they've been taught of how to like generate those referrals, to do the work, right? To receive the referrals is something they don't want to do, which means they're left with the hope strategy. And we all know hope's an amazing thing to have. It's just not a strategy that you need to have in your business. And so they're kind of left in this place of like, I do great work, I get some referrals, but I don't really know what it takes to get more of them. And so we kind of are like, people had this thought process of like, well, they'll just show up. Whatever comes will show up. And I always say, listen, yes, some will. But if you want consistent referrals, you're going to have to shift your mindset around, yes, you deserve them, but be willing to do the work of who you take care of. And I'm ultimately talking about the referral source, the people who refer you, is to be willing to take care of those people, to be able to receive those referrals. Just don't have this expectation that they're just going to show up because you did great work. Because if they did, if every client referred you because you do great work, we would not be having this conversation, Jordan. I mean, at the end, I wouldn't be having this conversation with anybody. I wouldn't have a business. But that's just not how it works. It doesn't matter how much your clients love you. It doesn't matter how much your contacts love you. Like at the end of the day, there's a relationship that's got to be nurtured, that's got to be maintained. And it's really important that you pay attention to that. And that's the work I'm talking about. It's going to feel good, but it's still work.
How, like, what are the most common things that people do when they're living this in reverse, when they are feeling like they are owed referrals?
So typically when people feel like they're owed referrals, they find themselves in one of two camps. The first one is they then will deploy tactics that make it all about them. I am owed these referrals, so I'm going to tell you to give them to me. And I may do it in an ask, but I'm basically going to tell you that you need to be referring me. Or I'm going to stalk your LinkedIn profile and give you a list of 10 names and say, hey, these 10 people, I should be working with them. So you should do the connecting for us, right? It's that type of mentality. That's one bucket that they fall into when they feel like they're owed them. The other bucket that they fall into is when they feel like they're owed them, but they don't know what to do. They just get like bitter. And there is this idea behind them that I'm owed them and they're not coming and what's wrong, but they don't ever look at it like a reflection on themselves. They look at it externally, like, why aren't people referring me? And then that leads them to think, well, I guess I don't do good work. And that's usually not the case. The case is like, but referrals just don't magically appear out of thin air because you did a great job. There's a relationship that has to be nurtured. So usually when I find somebody that is in a I'm owed them mentality, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what bucket are we in? And then helping them kind of like unpack themselves out of that bucket to understand that you're not getting them, right? Because you maybe have done something wrong or because you're not doing these terrible tactics to generate them. But you do have to do something because they're just not going to show up. You're not owed them. You deserve them. And there's a big difference there.
And to anybody listening to this, if you are anything like me or know anybody like I am thinking of, Stacey's answer to that question just spoke deep into your soul about the emails you dread of the let's set some time to go through each other's, virtual Rolodex. All right. So you deserve referrals, but you're not owed them. And then I think that kind of flows into our next one to get us to the underpinning of this. So take tip number 2 away.
Yeah. So number 2 is it's really important that you understand the science behind referrals and that once you understand the science, you don't violate it. And so I think most people, I would tell you, are not walking around talking about the science behind referrals. Most people aren't paying attention to what's actually happening when a referral is being given to you, right? When you receive a referral, right? When somebody refers someone to your firm, everybody's like, oh, I got a new client. It's all about me. And I'm like, nope, the science says it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with that referral source, the person who did refer to you, helping somebody that they know, helping somebody solve a problem. How they chose to help them solve that problem was by connecting them with you. You're just the solution provider. And that's just the first tip of the iceberg of understanding the science that is actually behind referrals and what makes them happen and what makes them happen with some level of consistency as well. And so it definitely goes into the psychology of trust and understanding social networks and definitely understanding, behavioral economics. There's these pieces that not only do we use that science and how we build the strategies and the systems that our clients deploy to generate more referrals, it's all baked, the science is all baked into those practical applications that we teach our clients. But ultimately, what people need to understand is that it starts with you understanding referrals aren't about you. They're about your referral source. They are the hero. And your job is not only, of course, to deliver amazing client experience to the person that was just referred to you, but to maintain the relationship and cultivate the right kind of relationship with your referral source. And when you decide to ask people to refer you, or you decide to put something gimmicky like the greatest compliment you can give us is a referral in your email signature, or you decide to promote, like, hey, if you refer someone to me, I'll treat that client better than any other client that would ever come through my firm, which I see attorneys do this a lot. And I'm like, what message are you sending? Like when you violate the fundamental pieces and the science behind why referrals happen, that's when referrals stop. And when you violate it, like asking for them, being gimmicky, acting as if somebody referred to you is way more important than another client, even if they are, it's not something you should ever be like putting out there, right? Like it's all in the messaging. It's all in your, like, just how you come across when it comes from referrals and making it about you. The minute you start making referrals about you, you've lost. Like, you're not doing it right. You've got to make it about the people who refer people to you, because they are the ones who know the other prospects that they could be referring to you, and your obligation is to them.
And I don't know what this says about me, but as somebody who has both received and given like millions of dollars worth of referrals, I still am so shocked anytime they happen. Like, here you are seeing somebody with a problem, knowing you can't solve that problem, which most people stop right there. But this referral source is going that to be like, all right, they need a solution. Who do I know who can be the solution? And then, finding me or finding, whoever it was that got the referral. It's just, it like shouldn't happen. But the more that you understand how serious that moment is, the more like proud you are of the referral source for going out of the way to make the referral, just as much as it being, coming to you.
It's all the feels, right? I mean, it just brings up all the feels.
Yeah. Like imagine how many business owners don't step up when they see somebody has a problem they can solve, but then how many people go further and step up to solve problems they can't solve by making that connection. Like, it's just fascinating.
Yes.
All right. I know the next one we've danced around or we've brought up a couple of times. I mean, this is the core of so much of what you do and so much of why I love the way that you do what you do with tip number 3.
Yeah. So I feel like I should make the statement, put a period after it, and we should move on, because people should just be like, yes, heard, right? But we can certainly talk about it. Tip number 3 is don't ask, don't pay, don't be gimmicky, and don't feel like you have to network all day long to receive referrals. I would actually prefer that you not do anything than to do those things and thinking that it's going to trigger consistent or a steady stream of referrals into your practice, because it won't. And actually the asking, now the compensation thing is like, okay, in this industry, it's like legally you can't, right? But in some industries they can, but the asking piece and some of the things that people do, it's actually damaging to your ability to generate long-term referrals from people. So if you don't want to do what I teach, right, at a bare minimum, just don't do those things. Right? We call them the old school referral tactics, the traditional, like, old school way of the ick factor of trying to get referrals that have been around forever. I mean, this is what I'm up against every time I have a conversation with somebody about how to generate referrals naturally by using science and then the right strategies and systems and processes, is I'm up against them thinking, well, I've got to ask, or I've got to compensate, or I got to be gimmicky, or I got to be seen all the time, or people will forget me if I want referrals. And just none of that's true.
And I'm going to go kind of meta. Part of the reason why I love interview shows, and part of the reason why I take my hat off to you, have a podcast that's only like 1 in 10 interviews versus all of mine, is for this, because like I get so many emails all the time, like, oh, hey, I think we have clients in common. Why don't we, no, why don't you come on my show? Let's talk for an hour. I will get to know who you are, and we can have thousands of people see what you have to say in that hour to see who jives with what you're selling, what you're selling already. And so we don't have to ask, and we don't have to pay. We don't have to be gimmicky. I can literally show you, like, do you like what Stacey has said for the last 20 minutes? If so, that might be a great person to work with, rather than me being like, hey, random lawyer who I've emailed, I think you need to talk to this other person that you've never met before or know much about, or whatever it is, in this weird asking for referrals to make weird connections in advance of some opportunity. It's weird to me.
Well, it's because no agenda ever is hidden. Like, we're just too smart now. We know when the LinkedIn message request comes across, what ultimately is coming after that. We know, like, you're not being clever. Like, we get it. There's something coming, right? Like, hey, let's connect and see, maybe we can help each other. Maybe you are connecting with the same type of clients I'm connecting with. Like we know what's coming. There's a direct ask coming at the end of this. It's not really a let's get to know each other and let me see how I can help you. Right? Like, the reality is that so many of these tactics, and those aren't even really the ones I'm talking about, but like so many of the tactics that we do, they've been done to death, and we know what's coming. So you should probably find a different way to do things that's actually more genuine, a little bit more authentic. And I feel like when you're doing referrals in the right way, not in this, asking or being gimmicky or networking or paying, you have a much better chance of actually developing real relationships and getting real business from it.
I love the way you phrase that, because I go back to, like I say this to lawyers all the time. When you have that client in the consult who assures you that they are going to pay you all of your money, you know you're never getting paid. So I think when you have that intro where the person assures you that it is not a pitch for whatever, you know it is, because if it's not, like, they're not gonna tell you that it's not something that it truly isn't, except for that they were told to tell you that to make you think that it's not, so that then you can get the thing that they told you it wasn't.
And it worked like 5 years ago, right? That was a new concept. That was a new way to get people's attention. Now we've been doing it for a while. We all know what's coming. Like, we're just smarter than we've ever been.
All right. So the next tip that you have is near and dear to my heart, and probably the only thing I did correctly at the beginning of my firm. Number 4 is
Track your referrals, and then track some more. Like, this one's not sexy. Let's be honest. There's nothing fun and sexy about making sure that you are, gathering the data that you need. But this one is so very critical. And I say this for 2 reasons. One, like, tracking, it just makes good business sense, right? Like, it just makes sense that you're tracking the things that are actually happening in your business, that you're slowing down enough to be able to put processes in place to track the things, make sure the employees that are in place are tracking the things, or you're just making sure that it's happening and the tracking is happening. I know it's not fun. I know nobody wants to stop and input data. Like, I get it. But the other side of that is that I see, and I have seen business owners in business like decades that come to me, and I ask for a very simple piece of information, and they look at me like I have 14 heads, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's going to take forever to put together, because they haven't been tracking it all along. And I'm like, yeah, I need you to track this stuff now. And that tracking of what I want you to track, okay, you should definitely be tracking the date that any new prospect comes into your orbit, right? So you're going to track the date, you're going to track the prospect's name, and you're going to track the source. But if that prospect was referred to you, the source I want you tracking is not only that it was a referral, but I want the referral source's name. At a minimum, that's what I want you tracking. I want you tracking every prospect that walks through the door, like whatever, whether it's the literal door or not, right? I want you tracking them, and I want to know where they came from. I want to know what their source was. And if they were referred to you, I want to know the name of the person that referred them to you. And that's really important data. You can level that up, and you can then also track outcome to know your closing ratio by different sources of where your business is coming from. You can also track not only the outcome, like, yes, it closed, no, it didn't close, or I referred it out, but you can also track the revenue that comes into that as well. And that way we know, hey, everything that's coming through this one source, we're closing. We have a high closing ratio on it, and we're making a lot of money. Maybe we should lean into that, whatever that source is. Like, you make better decisions in your business. But from my perspective for referrals, when I ask you to tell me who are your referral sources, I don't want what you think you can remember. What I want is what your data tells me. And if you don't have it tracked, I make you recreate it. And as you can imagine, Jordan, when my clients go through that step and they have to recreate this data, I give them full permission as they do this process to mention and mumble my name and other bad words in the same sentence, because that's how they will feel when they are going through and having to pull this data together. But they all feel amazing when it's done. If they didn't have it in advance, they all feel very empowered, is the word they usually use, when they actually look at the data of where their business is coming from, and then look closer, for my purposes, of who's actually doing the referring of clients to their business. So track, super important.
And I also like tracking if you like the client, and maybe like isn't the right word, but like the rating of the client, how close it is to your target client, how easy it was to get them to pay, whatever it is. Because you'll find these like weird commonalities between referral sources, where that one referral source sends you all of your favorite clients who become referral sources themselves and repeat business. And then you'll have those referral sources that you can tell are trying, but you just hate everybody that they know for whatever reason, like
Right.
whatever it happens to be. And it's always interesting to me to be like, what is Sally doing to meet these wonderful people? And then what is Greg doing to just be like the biggest jerk with the connections that they are sending over, or sending over the biggest jerks? Not that Greg is the jerk.
Or Greg.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, Greg's my business partner, so
It's an easy name to pick on.
Uh-oh. What's the Greg story?
Oh, for me? Oh, no,
Yeah.
I was just saying it's an
Oh,
easy
just throwing
one
it
to
out.
pick up.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just throwing it out.
Got it. All right. So we got the tracking. What else should we be doing as referrals come in, aka tip number 5?
Yeah. So this one is either going to make someone be like, of course, or be like, darn you, Stacey. You have one or two visceral reactions. You're like, yep, done it, doing it, or I don't wanna, but I know she's right. You're gonna have one of those two reactions. So this tip is you need to commit to writing a handwritten thank you note each and every time a referral arrives. Each and every time you get a referral is received, you need to be writing a handwritten thank you note. And look, Jordan's got his
Sits
note
on my
card.
desk
I love
because
it.
because of you.
I mean, Jordan, you would be surprised when I am not only just talking to clients, not so much clients, because like by the time they are a client of mine, they have committed to the fact that this is something they have to do. And so I had someone say, I have to write those cards or to stay in Stacey's good graces. And I was like, I'm okay if you think of it that way. But like when I'm talking to other people, like I'm giving a presentation, you would be surprised how many buts I get. But what am I going to say? But I have the worst handwriting, but I'm so busy. But doesn't it matter that I sent that email? Like, but doesn't it matter that I thought about sending them a card, but I didn't do it? And I'm like, your intentions are crap. They mean nothing. Like in this case, we need a handwritten thank you note. And I'm done like having the argument with people about why attorney should be writing that handwritten thank you note. If you decide to hand this off to someone else, so be it. It's not the same when they realize it's been handed off, particularly if you have somebody else signing your name. They're going to know. Like it matters that you are writing the thank you card for the referral received, and it takes like 60 seconds. It's the simplest 3-line card you'll ever write. Just thank them for who they referred to you. Tell them how much you appreciate helping the people they know and that you're there for them if they need anything. It's like boom, boom, boom. It's the simplest thing you could ever write. And I don't even care if you pre-write these things in advance and fill in the names where they belong every time you receive a referral. But what people underestimate about receiving a handwritten note is the impact it has on the receiver. And that impact has longevity that a simple email or text message will never have, because they're completely forgotten within seconds because we have so much digital noise. Our mailbox is just full of crap and bills. So when we find something fun that's in there, that's very exciting. So it's an impactful when I receive it. And then guess what happens with that note card? Usually I set it somewhere, not forever, but it's going to be set somewhere. It's going to be on the kitchen counter, on my desk, on the cork board, wherever. It'll be there for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, whatever it is. And then guess what happens when I go to put it in the recycle bin? I have to read it again because I have to recognize what I'm recycling. And guess what? Boom, you're thanking them again for something they did. And that has longevity that you cannot get in an email. You just can't.
I'm gonna push back on one thing.
Oh no, bring it.
For me, I don't even put the name of who they referred. I'm like, client confidentiality, if it randomly gets opened by somebody else, like I'm so anal about it. But other than that, I 100% agree. And I want to say the other day, since COVID started, so sometime in the last 3 years, somebody reached out to me and was like, hey, I want to let you know, I got a thank you card from somebody else. And I thought it was the coolest thing. And I told them that. And they were like, they only sent me a thank you card because you sent them a thank you card for a referral they had sent you, whatever it was. So thank you for starting this. Like, now we all lawyers in Orlando write referral thank you cards to everybody. And then so I was like, well, actually, that's from Stacey Brown Randall. So
I'm nice to know I'm a trendsetter. My kids would tell you I'm not. So I'm going to have some fun conversations with them tonight about that. But here's the thing about using the name. It is a personal choice. I have a number of like divorce attorneys that are in my program, BRB, and we will have the same conversation about like, where is the confidentiality line? And it is a business decision every person has to make. Some do, some don't. A lot of times you don't want someone opening mail, like you're getting a divorce, maybe your spouse doesn't know it. You don't want them opening your mail and be like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, I totally get that. So you have to make those decisions for yourself. But most of the time when the person's opening the card is the person it's addressed to. So you're safe. But again, yes, make the decisions that are right for your business.
it's funny you bring that up. We actually did that to somebody too. We had one of our show guests cancel because his wife was like very sick and in the hospital. So we sent the card and it's on the stuff. So the card said something to the extent like, so sorry to hear about your wife. And the wife opened it and was like, are you filing for divorce? And then they were like, wait, what? And we're like, no. And then they told me the whole thing. And they're like, oh, and then so the wife was like, I just never knew a lawyer would send a nice card to somebody for no reason. And I was like, well, we haven't met before, but Your
We're
husband's a good
special.
dude.
And you said because we're special.
Yeah, very special.
That is
That
funny.
was a funny, yeah. Things happen. All right, so number 6, another good data collection tracking type tip.
Yeah, I know it's nobody's favorite, but if you're tracking, as we talked about number 4, this one makes a lot of sense. You really need to know who are your referral sources. And that means you need to know them by name and like first and last name. So unless Madonna's referring you, I really need, wow, did I just age myself? I should have said Beyonce. Excuse me. Let me go
There we
back
go.
and say something a
Madonna's
little
still,
bit.
she's still around.
She is, and she's amazing, but let's be honest, I just dated myself. I should have said Beyonce. And I need first and last names of who your referral sources are, but then you also need to know the category that they're in, the type that they are, and the status that they are. And that only comes into place if you're actually going to do something, right, to take better care of these referral sources. But we teach the categories as your referral source is either an existing or potential. Now, technically, a potential referral source has never referred you. So they're not a real referral source, but for our purposes, when you've identified people you want to refer you, they're potential referral sources. People who have referred you, they're existing. So those are the 2 categories, existing and potential. There are 4 types of referral sources. They are your clients, whether they're current or past, previous, alumni, whatever you call them. Then there are centers of influence or spheres of influence, whatever you call those. Then there are family and friends. And the 4th type is strangers. And strangers just means that you're not a stranger to them because somehow they knew you well enough or felt like they knew you well enough to refer you. You just don't know who they are when they show up. Usually it's because you have a reputation, like you've probably been in business for a while. Most people don't ever have strangers refer them, but it is the 4th type of a referral source. So again, client, COI, family and friends, stranger, and then status, they're either active or inactive. Active means they referred you in the last 2 years. Inactive means it's been more than 2 years since they've referred you.
I love it. What are you also having your clients keep info about the referral sources, like to the extent of what they can pass back?
What do you mean?
Like, okay, so I know this is an existing referral source who's a center of influence, who's active, and they're a realtor. So now I have a client who just got a great PI settlement. They want to buy a house and move out. I know I can pass them back to so and so.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing, unless you have hundreds of referral sources on your list, and some businesses do, some businesses are just designed that way. Most of the businesses that I work with in the industries where I work and the type of clients that I work with, most of the time we're going to be hitting the upper levels of when we're at 50 to 75 referral sources. And by that point, once you've hit 30, when you hit 30 referral sources, we're already putting folks in levels. We don't do it before then. 30 is usually our marker, unless there's a reason. We're putting people into levels. If you have a lot of referral sources, your top ones, but you know them. So you would know things about them. If you're outsourcing that piece to like, hey, I need to connect them with the real estate agent who's on our list, like, then you would definitely want to make sure you have that information about them too, like who does what. But I find the more time you spend just making sure you have this list and then following a plan like the way we teach it to generate referrals from them, you just don't ever operate in a world where you don't know who your people are.
Makes total sense. Although I will say I have found myself not from the memory what they are, but for whatever reason, I would say the last year, 18 months, so many of my friends have changed jobs, whether it's same work, different firm, whether it's different firm, different work, whether it's same firm, different work. It's crazy. And thankfully, like the benefit of Florida having such public record laws is you can Google any lawyer and get their updated contact info. And so there's a couple of times where I'm like, oh my God. And I'll call up a friend. I'm like, hey, you realize your Florida bar info is like 3 firms ago? And they're like, oh my God, wait, hold on. I'll go and change it and whatnot. So it's helpful from that standpoint. That being said, I was going to ask, what do you do for these? But I think that's tip number 7.
Yeah. So the way that we teach is that you need to be executing on a referral plan, or you can think of this as like an outreach plan for those referral sources, but you do this each and every year. One of my favorite stories to talk about is actually Amanda. She is a personal injury attorney. She was one of the first people that I started teaching this to. We even have one of our strategies in a different program that's actually named after my time with her because I created the name while I was with her. And she's like in her 8th or 9th year now, following this plan that we built 8 or 9 years ago, whenever it was. Now she makes changes to it and stuff, but she knows who her referral sources are. She has a plan of how she's going to stay connected, right? And nurture those relationships. And it's a little bit more than that, but it's coming up in a further tip, what else you do with that referral plan. But it's understanding like what it is that I'm going to do consistently to take care of these people. And it's not daily, and it is not weekly, and it's not even monthly. Like that's the thing I think people overlook, is that there's got to be variety to it. And there has got to be a cadence to it. And there's a surprise and delight factor to it. That's how we kind of build in some of our behavioral economics piece of science of how we build out these plans. But I think about Amanda, who started out with 6 referrals on average a year. And then we quickly got her to 12. Right. And the first couple of months, we like doubled it. And then in her first year, she actually got 27 referrals. And now she gets more than 40 referrals. I don't even know I think she's somewhere in the 50s now, but she's 8 years in. She's like, I don't know what the number is once it gets past 40, because that's the goal I'm always aiming for. But she picks and chooses what cases she wants to take. It doesn't make her stressed out if there's a conflict check or there's actually not a case there that she can work with if it doesn't work out, because she knows she's got all these referrals coming in. They've been happening year after year after year. She's added attorneys to her part of the practice within the firm. And it's like, we actually had coffee a few months ago, and she was like, you saved my practice. Like, this is the strategy that I follow, and I follow this all the time. And guess what? When I do it, it works. And it's a planned approach. And there are the pieces that we teach our clients is exactly what this looks like. It's not willy-nilly. Hey, just, it's National Oreo Day. Send everybody some Oreos. No, there's a methodology. There's a methodology behind it that makes it work. And I think that people underestimate the power of something like a consistent plan, as long as the plan is built the right way.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I get this. I talk about similar to what you're talking about from like a content calendar standpoint. Like, look, if you have a content calendar for social media and you've got 3 posts scheduled on your major platforms every week, that's your foundation. And that allows you to sort of switch your mindset from I have to post to I get to post if more things happen, whatever. So in a situation like this with this plan, but the referral source wins the, state bar best lawyer award, or they get a top 10 verdict in the history of the state, or like something's happened, I feel like those people should reach out, and can reach out from a place of genuine enjoyment instead of reaching out from a place of like, oh my God, I haven't talked to so-and-so 59 days. Like I need to jump on this. I need to get like send that text, do this, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing. I mean, and Jordan, this maybe goes back to like that mindset shift we talked about at the beginning, but it's that idea that like this person who refers to you, they put their reputation on the line. When they choose to refer to you, they put their reputation on the line. Why in the world wouldn't you want to do something to cultivate that relationship to say thank you? Excuse me. I just think it's crazy when people don't think through that. Like, we've talked about this before, but sometimes I do feel like I spend time throughout every day reminding people of just how to be a good person. Like, let's just take care of the people who take care of our business, but let's do it in a way that I don't get so busy that I have forgotten to do something. And now it's been 90 days or heaven forbid 6 months, and you're ignoring the people who have been feeding business to your business. And have a plan and just make sure it happens. I know it sounds so simple, and I know it does. People are like, yeah, but it is work. Yes, that's because we said you're not owed referrals and there is work involved.
Totally. But, however you want to phrase it, I feel like as somebody who enjoys giving referrals, the people that give referrals back are similar people. Like, I feel like we are better people for looking out for others from the referral standpoint. And obviously that's biased. I get it. I get that part. But like, the more that I genuinely enjoy my referral sources, the easier it is to do whatever the plan is, whatever the connection is, whatever the lunch is. Like, I love looking at my calendar and being like, oh, I'm meeting so-and-so for lunch. Like, I haven't seen them in so long. I wonder, what's the update on the new job? Is their kid, walking yet? Like, all that stuff. I have a genuine enjoyment of spending time with them that I think makes all of the businessy side of it so much easier.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're not always going to have a personal relationship and love every single one of the people who refer business to you, right? I mean, some people refer for different reasons, but at the end of the day, they need to know that you appreciate them. And you need to be able to do something that's going to show that. And yes, I personally think when I get to hang out with the people who refer business to me, I'm like, oh, good. It'll just be like hanging with a buddy, right? But that doesn't mean everybody feels that way about every referral source, but people refer to you for a reason. And it's your responsibility to understand that and to nurture that part of the relationship.
Makes total sense. All right. So what about, how do we grow? We can get more referrals from our existing people, or we can tip number 8.
Yeah. Tip number 8 is you'd really need to know how to cultivate new referral sources when you need them. When I have people kind of tell me, okay, let's see how many existing referral sources you have. And we're looking at a list, depending on how many new clients they need in a year. So how many referrals do they want? All the pieces that flow into that, right? When we're looking at all that, inevitably, everybody comes to a place, not everybody, but mostly everybody comes to a place where at some point they're going to need new referral sources. They're going to need new people to cultivate. Right. And sometimes it's just because you don't have that many referral sources to start. Sometimes it's because you've changed the trajectory of your business, the model of your business, and people who used to refer are not really going to be the best people to refer. I've experienced this multiple times, and I've changed the model of my business. I'm still talking referrals, been talking referrals for almost a decade, but I've changed how I work with people. And they're just some people who I could understand how to refer one-on-one coaching. I don't understand how to refer to a group coaching model, or I don't understand how to refer to an online program or whatever it is. And so you just need to know, hey, when you need more people referring you, what the heck do you do? What are the steps? How do you cultivate? How do you create a system behind it so you'll actually do the work? And then what are you supposed to say and do in those conversations and in those follow-ups that actually would lead them to think about referring you without you ever having to ask for them or mention them or try to drop hints about it and be all weird. There is a good way, and it's the way that we teach our clients of hey, once you've identified people you want to refer you, you should know what process to put them through. And you should know how long to run that process until you decide that maybe they're not going to ever refer you, because you will kiss a lot of frogs before you get to the princes and the princesses that will ultimately end up referring you. But you need a strategy or system behind it, or you're just doing the spray and pray model of let me just meet 100 people and see what happens. Nobody refers you typically after one meeting or after one time grabbing coffee. There's a relationship that has to develop, and you need to know how to do that. And so that is definitely something I tell folks, you may not need any today, but you don't know what your list will look like and what you'll need, 100 days from now, because just because someone's on your referral list today doesn't mean they're there forever. People change, people move, you change, businesses change, everything could happen. Your referral source list is fluid. So when you need new people, you need to know what to do to cultivate them.
Well, and look, as awesome as it is when you do have that one coffee that leads to a case or referral immediately, I'm then also weirded out by well, what happens when they have coffee with somebody else that one time? Do I lose the referral source? I kind of want there to be the foundation of a real relationship to know that this is an actual thing. I don't that this isn't a one night stand.
One hit wonder.
What? One hit wonder. That's a much more appropriate way to phrase what we're going here.
Yeah. And I think, they do happen, right? Sometimes you may just have a conversation with the right person at the right time, and they may have something for you, but then that becomes your obligation to know how to continue to cultivate them and to put them as part of your referral plan and to continue to grow that relationship and recognize that it could just be what it was, or there could be more there, but it's not their job to just keep referring to you and you do nothing. It's your job to continue to cultivate that relationship so that if there are more referrals, then obviously you're going to be the one that's going to receive them.
Well, and you mentioned one of the types of referrals being clients. And if you're growing a business, you are getting in front of more and more clients in some manner. So I love that we're going to jump on that in tip number 9.
Yes. So that tip number 9 is create a referable client experience, not a choppy one. When I used to talk about referrals, I used to say, I'm going to show you how to get, I'm going to teach you how to get more referrals from the people who refer you. But my disclaimer is, I'm assuming you're referable. It was always this thing I used to say. And the truth is, most people are. I don't know. Yes, absolutely. There are some people who wake up and they just is whatever, you're so lucky to work with me. You're going to get whatever I give you. I don't know who those people are. They don't operate. I don't give them money. They don't operate in my world, but most of us wake up every day and we're here to help our clients grow. And that is a good thing because it also helps me grow, all good things, right? But the reality of it is, if you want people to refer you, you've got to have a client experience that makes them comfortable referring. And I don't mean perfection, But what I do mean is that you've got to have a client experience where it's that repeatable experience happening for everybody in the same way, but also when you know the moments to pay attention to the potential for where referrals could be gathered. And so it's not just having the wow, amazing, I used to call it the sticky client experience. It's also making sure, because that makes you referable, but it's like, where are the moments to have them? The number one reason why people won't refer to you, but stay with you is because they have a choppy experience with you. And it may be just too hard to leave you, or they're getting just enough to make sense to stay with you, but they would never consider sending anybody they know to you. So it's not just good enough to have clients who stick around. You need to make sure you've got that referable client experience as well.
And what I would add, the thing for me that the deserving of referrals or having a referral business starts with the fact that you care when stuff doesn't go right. Like, I don't expect anybody to be 100%, but if I can tell that a business owner truly cares when things go off the rails, that 1% of the time, that 3% of the time, whatever it is, that makes it so much easier for me to refer to them, because I know that if I refer them that, random case, that random situation, that random client, they're going to go above and beyond to make it right, which makes them look good, which makes me look good.
Yeah.
Which makes the client happy.
It makes it all work, right? Like, I got an email this morning. It's like Monday morning. Like, the last thing I want is to open up my email and have an email from a client. It's like, hey, I'm having trouble getting into the online portal, which is where we keep all of our trainings. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Cause for me, when technology goes wrong, I just want to crawl back into bed. I'm like, I hate figuring out technology. Luckily I've got a team. So I was like, no, it's called Forward and somebody else will handle this. But I immediately responded back. It was like within a couple of minutes that I saw the email, I immediately responded back. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I can imagine what a pain this is for you. You wake up ready to do some work Monday morning, and now the site is loading slow. I know it was working this weekend. That doesn't really help you, but I think it's temporary. I've got my team on it. I'll follow up with any details. And he was great about it. He was like, yeah, thanks. Like, he just cared that I cared that I was going to pay attention and get it managed, and that I was on top of it. He's not thinking to himself, well, that's, that internet site, it was a little slow today, so I'm never going to refer Stacey. Like, most people just want to know that you were paying attention and that you're taking into account what they're asking you or what they need from you.
Well, and the flip side of that is how many businesses aren't. You send out a message into the ether and never hear back. And then I'm like, we have the Orlando Foodie Forum Facebook group, which is my favorite place to find new restaurants. But there's this whole thing, like, when people complain on the page, everyone's always like, did you ask to see the manager? Did you ask to speak to the manager? Did you, and then anytime the person's like, yes, I did, and they didn't care either, then everybody's like, no, you trash this business. Like, which one is it? Let's poop on them. Like, you ran this up the flagpole. It's amazing to see the that little bit of giving the owner or giving the one in charge the opportunity to make it right, and having them do it or throw it in your face, like being the end all be all.
Right. Yep, it's true.
All right. I don't know how to phrase, I want to say last but not least, but you did provide us a bonus. So let's go with tip number 10, and then spoiler alert for everybody else in the last 8 minutes. There actually will be 2 more because we have a bonus tip.
Yeah, sorry, I don't always pay attention to rules or follow rules like I'm supposed to. I'm just a giver, Jordan. I'm just a giver.
Tip number 10, always follow the rules. I can't believe that was the one that you picked and made a note.
I don't follow the rules. Okay, so tip number 10 is master how to plant referral seed language. I cannot stress enough that you can do all the things to take care of your referral sources. But if you're not actually planting referral seeds in a way that we call it with our clients, easy breezy, like normal, like that language that just kind of flows as part of whatever it is you're doing within your referral plan, or that conversation or that card or whatever it is, that you've got to know what that looks like. You need to understand the formula behind it. You need to be able to how to plant it. It truly is, we always call it, this is our secret sauce, right? This is that unique proprietary piece of what we teach our clients, that when they get this, they're like, oh, it's like the secret sauce that makes everything else work and makes everything else taste good. But it's understanding the language component of this. Like, I worked with somebody, not an attorney, was actually a financial advisor, and he went through the program. He was like, okay, I built out this plan. I'm just going to keep doing all my client appreciation events. And I was like, okay, well, you need variety. Number one, that's part of the science. And number 2 is you need to then infuse this language. He's like, no, it's going to be fine. I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm like, why are you a client of mine? Like, I don't understand. because he didn't do it. And then he didn't get more referrals. He was like, why didn't it happen? And I'm like, you remember that conversation we had? You changed nothing about your language. Language matters in so many ways. And it is the piece that when people get to that step, when they're working with me, I'm like, get ready to have your mind blown about how simple this can be. But in all the different ways, I'm going to teach you to use it and to know when to use it and to know when not to use it, when to hold back and when to use it and how to create your own. That is the piece that I really feel like when you're trying to cultivate referrals, you need all the pieces of the puzzle, which means who are your referral sources? What are you doing to cultivate a relationship? But what are you also saying while you're doing that cultivation that makes all those pieces work together? So that's tip number 10.
And I feel like, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the expert on this. I feel like the language part, though, is like the cherry on top of that sundae. Like there's so much low-hanging fruit, and then that's like that final piece that ties it all together.
Yeah, but I had one client who started with my program, and he was like, hey, we were doing his onboarding call. We were going through it, everything for him joining BRB. And he goes, hey, wait, I find myself in this situation a lot, and I know it's going to happen tomorrow. What would I say? And he explained the situation. I was like, oh, this is the referral seed language I want you to use. And he was like, he literally like paused. He was like, okay, well, that was worth the price of admission. He goes, that alone is going to get me so many referrals. I don't even know if I'm going to go through any of the trainings. I'm like, well, please still go through all the trainings.
At least he's honest
for it. Like, this wasn't $100. Like, you should probably do the trainings. But he was like, that's what I needed. He goes, so yes, it's the cherry on top. And sometimes it's the thing that makes everything like, oh, I get it now. And it's all going to work.
And unfortunately, we only have a couple minutes left because the bonus tip is something that I know you and I can speak about for potentially ever. So
Hours.
Definitely.
Yes. Bonus tip. I mean, Jordan, this should really go without saying, but unfortunately, I have learned that it needs to be said. You always need to be authentic and you need to be genuine. If you are dead inside and you think that people should be giving you referrals because you deserve them and you shouldn't have to do anything to earn them, it's not going to work. You need to actually care about the people who put their reputation on the line and refer business to you, regardless if you close that business or not. So just be a good human, like be authentic, be genuine, and good things come when you are doing the right thing.
And I feel like it's easier to be genuine and authentic because then you're not like, oh, I'm in front of so-and-so, I need to do this. Okay, well, now I'm over here, I need to do that. You're just like, no, I'm me, and I'm me regardless of where it is, which sometimes that's to my detriment, like at galas when I show up in my normal, but anyway.
Well, sometimes to my detriment too. Like, I love it when people are like, wow, she's a really, straight shooter. And I'm like, some people could interpret that differently, but I am me. Like, at the end of the day, what you see is what you get.
Awesome. All right. So to everybody watching, listen to this, thank you so much for your time. We'll have Stacey in the group over the next 10 weeks. We'll finish it with a wonderful, amazing, awesome live session where you can get your questions answered specifically from there. And then we'll see you back here next Thursday at 6 p.m. on April 13th. So thankfully it's Thursday the 13th, not Friday. We'll have Ryan McKean on. Ryan had set the goal to have a $10 million verdict within 10 years. And at about the halfway point of that, had a $100 million verdict. So we will go into the story of this. We'll go into the EOS traction type stuff he did. And also, Ryan originally named his episode The Downside of Running a Law Firm While Being as Handsome as He Is. So you will also get a ton of humor because if you know Ryan, it is tongue in cheek and it's super funny. So hope to see you all back there. But Stacey, for anybody who wants to connect with you, we've got the website, staceybrownrandall.com. Stacey has an E. We've got the Roadmap to Referrals podcast, which I'm still stuck on Roadmap to Grow Your Business, but it is so much better. Anything else for people to stay in touch with you?
I am on Instagram and also LinkedIn. Those are my two preferred platforms. So you can always direct message me there if you prefer.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you to everybody watching and listening. We'll see you in the Solutions for Lawyers Facebook group and then see you next week. In the meantime, have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. If you're interested in becoming the Exhibit A of a successful attorney, please check us out at legalesemarketing.com, EASE.